Happy Friday, scholars! Are finally here. I feel like this week has taken a pretty long time, but hopefully, this weekend also takes a long time because I really need it. So today we're going to be able to explain the separate kingdoms when Charlemagne lost power and the conflict in power between the Pope and the Emperor, which is pretty intense, and then we will finish that up on Monday. The do now will take about 2 to 5 minutes. It's just one multiple choice question that has to do with the relationships between the church and society. A lot of it is kind of a review of what we've already talked about and just analyzing that and taking it. We've got just a couple quick notes and then guided practice and independent practice. Today is National Laugh Day, or National Let's Laugh Day. So everyone should try and get a good laugh in. Usually in school, if you're hybrid, that's not hard to do. If you're at home, just watch a funny like TikTok or something, but definitely make sure you have a laugh today. All right, your do now is you have let me move my face. I feel so weird saying that. Let me move my face. So we have a diagram which has the church in the middle. Obviously, this is the Catholic Church. And then on the left, we have parish priests, and on the right, we have monasteries and convents. So using this diagram, and graphic, you're going to answer the question, a valid statement concerning the Catholic Church during the Middle Ages is that it, 1, emancipated, which means freed the noble serfs, 2, rejected power and wealth, 3, maintained armies for the king, or 4, provided social and educational services. So what did the Catholic Church which of these things did the Catholic Church do during the Middle Ages is what it's asking you. So go ahead and pause your video and answer that question. We'll come back in a second to check your answer. All right, your answer should be 4, provided social and educational services. So if you look at the chart, there's really nothing to do with serfs or freeing serfs anywhere in any of the boxes on the charts. It certainly doesn't reject power and wealth. In fact, the parish priests and the church embraced and wanted power and wealth, so exactly the opposite. They maintained armies for the king is inaccurate because Catholics they didn't fight. So that's why monasteries and convents were the perfect places to rob, which we'll talk about later. And then provided social and educational services. If you go over to the monasteries and convents, you can see scribes copy classical and religious writings, which is educational, schools, educational, hospitals is a social service, taught nobles' daughters needlework and herb use, that's both, taught peasants practical skills, both. So missionaries were sent throughout Western Europe, both. Guest houses, social service. So obviously, or no, I won't say obviously, but it's clear that the answer is 4. If you did get it correct, I just want to applaud you because this particular question is actually straight from the New York Regents, which is the high school test that New York City students or New York students have to pass to graduate from high school. So you're actually answering a high school level graduation test question. So if you got that correct, congratulations, you just analyzed a high school level graphic. All right, so our notes today are pretty quick. We have the first word, which is excommunicate, and that's to exclude a person from a church or religious community. Essentially, you're just kicking the person out. You're basically saying, you're not part of the Catholic Church anymore. You're out. Bye. See ya. You're not welcome here anymore. God doesn't see you. Bye. Um, and that was a pretty intense thing because you have to remember during this time, the church was everything, everything. And that's all people knew. And we even know from yesterday's lesson, in some cases, the Pope was more important than the Emperor, which we'll get into more today. So that was like it. And if you got kicked out of the church, it was a big deal. And then secular means non-religious or not church related. So the best way to explain it is like secular or not, or sacred music would be like gospel music or music that you hear in church. And secular music would be like what you listen to on the radio. So clearly, Lil Baby is not rapping about the church. So that would be secular music. All right, so this is just some map practice because I want you to kind of get in the flow of the area we're still continuing to work with, but these kingdoms start to get divided up. So I want you to be kind of familiar. So number one in the map skills box, it says, what was the largest kingdom or empire in Europe in 1100? And then what empire stretched across Southeast Europe? So you're also practicing your directions. So go ahead and pause the video and answer questions 1 and 2. You do not need complete sentences, just simply put the name of the empire. All right, so the largest kingdom we see is the Holy Roman Empire, and that's specifically what we're going to be talking about today and for quite a bit in the future, probably for the next month or so. You can see some other kingdoms. So we have England, we have Kingdom of the Franks, which ends up becoming France and a little bit of Germany. We have the Kingdom of Hungary and the Kingdom of Poland. Yay, that's where I'm from. Okay. But the Kingdom of Poland and the Kingdom of Hungary at some point are going to dissipate, and this is Switzerland. Switzerland doesn't get involved in anything ever. But they're kind of gonna, Poland and Hungary kind of go back and forth from being kingdoms and countries and not countries and back and forth because people take them over and things like that. And then so obviously, sorry, the Holy Roman Empire is the largest on the map. And the Southeast Europe Empire would be the Byzantine. It's south and it's going east. All right, so let's start with some guided practice. After Charlemagne's empire collapsed, the eastern German part of the kingdom was divided among a number of dukes. Following Germanic tradition, they chose one of their own to be the king. A German king known as Otto the Great increased his power by making alliances with other German nobles. In 962, he persuaded the Pope to crown him emperor. By adopting this title, Otto was claiming to be the successor of Charlemagne. So if you remember, Charlemagne got the Pope to name him emperor, which was a big deal, but it was also the beginning of a power struggle, and we're going to continue to see that power struggle today. Otto's empire included the land that came to be known as Germany and also extended into Italian lands. In time, German emperors claimed authority over much of Central and Eastern Europe, but their empire was not like an ancient empire controlled by a single government. Instead, it was a collection of states ruled by princes who were loyal to the emperor. So again, we're seeing this, and this is similar to the original Roman Empire. This is also similar to Alexander the Great's empire, where they have this huge empire and one person can't run it all. The emperor can't just run everything. So the land is divided up and given to different people to run it for him and oversee it and be in charge. And that's what the princes did. So you have the emperor, and then you have the princes were given different pieces of land that they were responsible for being in charge of. And then you would have the lords that would have the manors, and those lords would report to the prince, who would then report to the emperor or king. So go ahead and pause your video, and you're going to answer questions 1 and 2. Incomplete sentences with a capital letter and a period. All right, so number 1, why did Otto try to persuade the Pope to name him emperor? With the Pope's support, he might be able to claim control of Charlemagne's empire. So Otto was claiming here, you can see and you can infer this. This is an inference question, so it's not explicitly in the text, but you can take this away from it. By adopting this title, Otto is claiming to be the successor of Charlemagne. So in essence, he is claiming control of what Charlemagne also had. When you're the successor, you're the person that comes next, behind the person that previously held the title. And so he might be able to control Charlemagne's empire, means if he's now emperor, he can now take over that responsibility and he can be his successor, which then in turn means he's controlling the empire. Question 2, how was Otto's empire different from ancient rulers or ancient empires? If you go into the text up here in this last part, it says, but their empire was not like an ancient empire controlled by a single government. Instead, it was a collection of states ruled by princes who were loyal to the emperor. So down here, I put it was made up of a collection of states ruled by princes loyal to Otto, but not under his control. Meaning, again, he was the emperor, but he put princes in control of different areas, which then appointed lords, who then ran the manors, who then reported to the prince, who then reported to the emperor. So you can pause the video and get that down if you did not have that. If you had something similar or along those lines, please, please, please save your time and do not go back and change it if it's on the right track. If you're basically saying the same thing that I put in different words, don't waste your time. But if it's like way out in left field, just like you look at it and you're like, okay, this is just not right, please fix it. I just want to stress, like, it doesn't have to be verbatim what I have, because that's not, I want it to be in your, it's okay if it's not in all my words exactly the same. All right, so for independent practice, you are going to read a little bit more about Otto and some of the rulers and the kings. And then you are going to look at where, this is when we're going to start seeing a huge conflict between the king or the emperor and the pope, because they're going to argue over who has the most power, and who has power over the government, and then who has power over the government and religion. So there's the argument that the pope should just be in charge of religious issues, but the pope is also saying he should be in charge of religious and government issues or kingdom issues, while the emperor is disagreeing with that. So we're going to kind of start looking at that power struggle that's going to follow us within at least the next month. And then you're going to see that word excommunicate. When you do read about the concordat of worms, it's verms, not worms. It has nothing to do with slimy things on the ground. It's verms because it's German. So in German, W's are pronounced like V's. And then you are all done. And then once you finish that, you are free to move on to another lesson, or if I'm the last lesson you have, enjoy the weekend. On Monday, we will continue to talk about that power struggle and the excommunication. I'm not going to tell you who because I don't want to give it away. And then we will continue to move on with some crusades. Have a great day, guys, and a good weekend.